We should be way angrier about how COVID was handled. Millions of people died from a preventable disease. Protections and mitigations paid sick days. Masks, improved ventilation, infection tracing were ignored, since doing anything to save lives would disrupt the economy. Now, with millions dead, the capitalist class is short on workers. So they're allowing child labor, including separating undocumented immigrant kids from their parents, just to feed the machine. I'm just sitting here wondering why, even before COVID, we've normalized a culture of forcing food service employees to come in and make burgers while sick with cold and flu, because otherwise the damn restaurant might have to close for a day. You know what's a fun exercise? Whenever you read The Economy, substitute corporate profits, because that's what they mean. Doing anything to save lives would disrupt corporate profits. Raising minimum wage would be bad for corporate profits. What grinds my gears was essential. Workers were paid less to risk their lives than unemployment was paying, and that most jobs somehow weaseled into essential. If a global pandemic couldn't get the United States to pass universal healthcare, nothing can. Yup. And it's not just deaths either. Lots of people have new, serious long-term health issues, many of which are very poorly understood and under-researched by modern medicine as a direct result of misinformation within the medical community. And many people are stuck caring for those with long COVID, who in extreme cases can end up too weak to even manage their basic needs, even if we ignore the suffering associated with it, which is extreme. By the way, long COVID is a massive drain on productivity, and it's gonna keep being a problem in people newly infected and reinfected, in people whose symptoms start later, or in people who were initially able to push through and continue working. Getting worse, ironically, often as a direct result of pushing through and continuing working. But there are still enough workers to keep society afloat. The problem is, there are not enough workers to keep society afloat and allow rich people to hoard wealth at pre-pandemic rates. And, since it's the rich people making the decisions, our society has to change. The one thing that still gets me is that schools lose funding when kids are absent. That drives a lot of bad behavior and pressures kids to go to school even when they are sick. It needs to change. Don't forget that they caused millions of us to get long COVID, which has caused millions to lose their jobs, homes, and/or families. After the Black Plague, there were massive labor shortages. The result was that Joe Schmo was now in demand and could hop over to the next village over and double his salary. This is what should be happening now. Workers should have greater bargaining power. Bringing kids into the workforce is the capitalist class way of mitigating any stress on their bottom line and handing over any power to the working class. It's sick. People are still dying. We should be angry still about how COVID continues to be mishandled. It disappoints me so much that so many people in the US, including many people who took COVID seriously and continue to do so, simply refuse to acknowledge that so many of the failings related to the pandemic stem from how disgustingly ineffective and broken labor laws are here in the US. I don't suppose you've seen those working with cancer ads that have been all over TV these days. I was in the hospital until Friday, wherein I received my breast cancer diagnosis and got a mastectomy done. And every time I had to watch those commercials, it just ground my gears. Instead of saying, we should support people with cancer at work, they should be giving them paid sick leave so they can get treatment and spend time with their family and friends. It's so sick, the propaganda they spew these days. The government lied to us during the entire pandemic. The government is not your friend. It's strange to me how the general public has moved on from anything COVID-related. You think both sides there'd be more interest and anger about origins, handling, what worked, didn't work, and holding those decision makers to account. But I guess the media and the special interests, companies and governments, made sure they moved away from that. If you can enforce your employees to wear hard hats for safety and harnesses, you can enforce masks. They just took down the clear COVID barrier cubicle extenders at work the other week. Didn't ask anyone. They just took them down. Oh, they did label them in case they're needed again. Office of much louder, and I'd wager sick day usage will increase. Insane. I think you used the wrong verb tense. We should be way angrier about how COVID is being handled. The number of COVID cases is falling, but the number of people out of work because of long COVID is climbing. The most common long COVID problem is loss of taste and smell. But those people aren't the ones being knocked out of work. It's the people who are suffering from lung damage, chronic fatigue, and brain fogging that are being forced into poverty. We absolutely need to be doing more, right now, to deal with COVID and its aftermath. My friend works at a famous chain fast food restaurant and recently tested positive for COVID. In their boss's words, "How long will you be out since we no longer have to give you off?" Like WTF? I will never get over the hurt and rage I still feel from having to call in a wellness check on a loved one with COVID who couldn't be reached. You know the outcome. I still mask, and anyone who has an opinion about it can eat my entire ass. COVID drove me to such bad burnout I had suicidal ideation. And it killed my father-in-law. My mother-in-law still thinks it's a bit of a conspiracy, even though she certainly benefited from COVID policies paying for a large portion of her husband's cremation. I guess it's easier to be angry at a president you don't like than the God you worship for being responsible for what happened was handled. The pandemic isn't over. 3,000 people a week are still dying in the USA. 1 in 5 develop long COVID symptoms from infection or reinfection. We should be angry about the way it has been and is still being handled.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.